because liberty matters, because people's due process right matters. I don't care if they're from the left or the right. The bottom line is the reports of treatment they're coming out of that jail are reprehensible. They are not American.
These scientists may be complicit in one of the greatest crimes against humanity.
But I think it raises a lot of questions about whether the money is going to be funneled ultimately into the Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese military.
You got to pick a side. And General Milley picked one. And it wasn't the red, white, and blue.
Hi, welcome everyone to Americans for Limited Government live stream. We're pleased today to have Rick Manning with us. He is, of course, the president of Americans for Limited Government. And there's an issue today that is truly, truly outrageous. And I feel like we say that every day. There is some outrage that we just really need to pass on to you and make you aware of. Today's, I think, is exceptional. Rick, why don't you explain to people, if they haven't already heard, what's going on now with the Biden administration?
Attorney General Merrick Garland, who most people will remember was the Obama pick to be on the Supreme Court. Thank goodness we dodged that bullet. He is now the Attorney General, and he came out with a declaration where he's invoking the Patriot Act against parents who oppose critical race theory before school boards. This was done at the request of the National School Board Association in what was obviously a predetermined set play where a letter would go in and 2 days later the Department of Justice would respond. So we know the Department of Justice doesn't work that fast. So they probably wrote the letter for the National School Board Association. I just want to bring to people's attention, first of all, I can't express how mad I am about this, because what they've done, what Merrick Garland has done, is he's declared parents who are standing up for their children's education to be terrorists, because that's what the Patriot Act governs, is terrorism. So he's declared parents just going to school board meetings and saying, we don't want poison poured into our children's ears, the cultural Marxism poured into our children's ears. We do not want America denigrated. We do not want America's basic founding to be told, our kids to be told that it was evil and that America is an evil country at its core. And because of that, our federal government is declaring those parents to be terrorists, a threat to the nation. It's so absurd, it's almost unbelievable. But Catherine, I think people need to be ready, need to stand up and push back at all levels of government on this.
So right next to us, we see the memo that was posted last night on Twitter. It's widely available. You can find it on the internet. But it's there in black and white. Merrick Garland is saying we're going to use the Patriot Act to go after parents who speak out in these school board meetings. Now, okay, so Merrick Garland is saying that he's going after, serious incidents of violence and threats, and they're using language like, there's a spike in death threats against school board members. But Rick, I think you and I both know that's not really what's going on here. They want to silence all parents.
This is about intimidation. It's nothing more, nothing less. Let's just be clear. We have teachers quitting over this, tearfully quitting. We've seen, this was actually the first kind of parent standing up against this was in Loudoun County, which is just Virginia, which is just down the road from us. And, these are parents who are basically standing up and saying, I want my kid to get an honest education. We are the taxpayers, and we are the ones who are paying for this. And we do not want this poison poured into our children's ears. It's a very simple request. And yet we have Merrick Garland saying, oh, we're going to do the Patriot Act as a response. And Are there death threats? I have absolutely no idea if there's death threats or not. What I do know is that this is an attempt to intimidate all of Americans to not stand up and express and demand redress from their elected officials. And remember, school board members are elected officials. And I know in my county, Calvert County, Maryland, where I live, that the school board, head of the school board, it's, by the way, 5 Republicans on the county commission, no Democrats, to give you a sense of it. The head of the school board stands up and says, I don't really care about what people say about CRT. We're going to impose it in the school. I mean, that's the kind of crazy stuff that's happening. And that's why parents are upset. It's why now we have 11% of kids being homeschooled as opposed to going to public school. We're going to see the private school systems also being taxed with more people go to private school who can opt out. The problem is the majority of the children are still going to be going to public school, and they're still going to be taught that America is not the greatest country on earth. In fact, that America has an original sin of slavery that can't be overcome, and that our founding fathers were nothing more than slaveholders trying to enrich themselves. That's what they're getting taught with this.
And Rick, I think it's important.
If we don't stand up now, that's what our children and our grandchildren are going to believe to be true for the rest of their lives.
Thank you, Rick. And I think it's also important to point out, you put out a statement this morning that this is not an isolated incident. This comes just on the heels of an announcement that the FBI is targeting conservatives online by going after 200,000 users of Proton Mail, which is an encrypted mail service. Right. They're specifically targeting conservatives there in a surveillance dragnet. So this is really a growing pattern we're seeing with the Biden administration.
Yeah, effectively, you're guilty until proven innocent under the Biden administration. If you're a parent who opposes CRT, you're guilty. Patriot Act for you, you're a terrorist, presumed terrorist. If you're a conservative with a Proton Mail account, your emails must be broken into. There doesn't have to be probable cause. There doesn't have to be a reason. There doesn't have to be a court order. The FBI is just seeking to break into people's emails to find out what's there, and a witch hunt, a wild goose chase, because, they have to sweep, it has to be done. And it doesn't matter what the truth is. It doesn't matter what the law is. It doesn't matter what the Constitution says. It doesn't matter about the Bill of Rights. None of those things, the presumption of innocence doesn't matter. Rob a 7-Eleven and you've got a presumption of innocence. Express political thought and you are presumed guilty of sedition, guilty of treason, guilty of the most heinous of crimes, and hence you must be brought to heel. Folks, this is about America, and we have to deal with this peaceably, but we have to deal with it. And what that means is contact your school boards. Demand that they send a letter to both the National School Board Association and the Department of Justice asking that they rescind this finding that their parents are, in fact, should be treated as terrorists. So do that. Contact the county commission. The county commission in most states, in most counties, end up funding the schools, and ask them to put a specific language into that funding that says the schools cannot teach CRT, cannot teach critical race theory.
And Rick, I think one of the things that's most troubling, although there's so much that's troubling about this case, but the fact that it happened so quickly, this National Association of School Boards sent a letter to the Biden administration, and within 2 days, the Biden administration responded with this memo to, use the Patriot Act, to have the FBI go after parents at school board meetings. You, having worked in the Bush administration, you know that those things don't happen just overnight. This must have been some sort of a coordinated, planned approach. Explain how that works.
This was at least a 2 to 3 week plan. It's getting something done like this, signed off at the highest level, the Attorney General level, is next to impossible. The fact that it was done 2 days after, 2 to 3 days after the National School Board Association letter came tells you that the National School Board Association letter was likely written by the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice and had already been signed off on by Merrick Garland, and that the memo that they released in response was probably already written before they even got the letter. Because that's how just getting something out of DOJ that's that rapid, or any bureaucracy, it just doesn't happen, okay? So understand, this is not a happenstance. This was a planned event. This is something that the DOJ has been planning to do. And they've been planning to do it to enforce critical race theory, which is a fundamental underlying legal theory, or the legal theory that this underlies is the disparate impact theory, which the DOJ is trying to push all across America, which says that that there is no equal opportunity. Outcomes are different for different races because the game's fixed. That's what disparate impact theory says. And so then you put on top of it critical race theory that puts the underpinnings of how the game is fixed. That's how they fit together. And the Democrats can't win on the outcome-based argument unless they teach Americans that you're fundamentally evil, that whites have a head start, blacks don't have a chance, and Hispanics don't have a chance, and Asians somehow don't have a chance. But nobody has a chance but whites. And it's an unbalanced playing field, when in fact, the real unbalanced playing field, and National School Board Association wanted to get into it, the real unbalanced playing field is Baltimore City Public Schools, where you don't get kids graduating who are able to read. The LA County LA Unified School District, where when I did a semester teaching there when I was at University of Southern California, the books were chained to the desk. People couldn't take their books home to actually study. The books were chained to the desk. What chance do those kids have? Okay, and that was the advanced class of the constitutional law class. So we're talking about, you want to talk about disparate impact. Disparate impact is New York City schools, where people are afraid to actually go into the school, where teachers are afraid to go into the schools because of the gang violence. So right. If the National School Board Association, if the Attorney General wants to do something, let's get to the bottom and clean up the schools so kids can actually go to schools and learn, as opposed to going into places where they fear for their lives and where they dare not even try to learn because of peer pressure.
And Rick, I know your time is limited with us, and you wanted to talk about some breaking news with the Durham investigation. First of all, do you just want to explain to people, because over the past 6 years, we have had a myriad of investigations. And I think a lot of people are kind of like, wait, which investigation is this? I mean, it's become a little bit much. So which is the Durham investigation and what's going on there?
Yeah, the Durham investigation is the investigation into what happened to the Department of Justice that spurred the entire Russiagate fraud. What actually occurred. And it's being run by John Durham, who was appointed by former Attorney General William Barr to take a look at it. He is, people, I've been disappointed it's taken so long in terms of where they're going. But the truth is, here's what they've got. They indicted a guy named Sussman, Brian Sussman, who is a attorney at Perkins Coie, which is the law firm that the Clinton campaign and the Democratic National Committee used. Sussman has been indicted for lying. The lie that he told, according to the indictment, was he told FBI investigators that he did not have a client interest when he was reporting to the FBI that Donald Trump was involved in a bank scam and was shared a secret bank account with a bank called Alpha Bank. This was the actual catalyst to being able to go after go to the FISA court and get a FISA warrant approved based on the Christopher Steele dossier, because they finally had somebody who was independent, was supposedly not being paid by the Clinton campaign or the Democratic National Committee, and so as a result, they can say, okay, just because it came from them does not mean that this is independently confirming what we were already trying to investigate. So that's really important to know, because Perkins Coie is the hub of the wheel for the entire Russiagate scandal. And now Durham has announced a couple of other that are some indictments that are coming down that are apparently within Perkins Coie. What that means is that the entirety of the Russiagate scandal is now being unraveled, because he's going directly at the heart of it, where the whole scheme was likely hatched and was implemented, because Perkins Coie are the ones who hired Fusion GPS, which were the public relations firm to push out the Steele dossier. They're the ones, they were involved in hiring Steele. They were involved in the entirety of all the DNC claims regarding the DNC server that supposedly got broken into and was broken into supposedly by the Russians. Every single one of these trails about all these different scandals that supposedly involve the Trump administration all lead to Perkins Coie. And as a result, if Perkins Coie has been broken, if that kind of cabal has been broken into, this is significant. It means we're going to get to the bottom of what actually happened, and the truth may get out. I don't have any great expectation, but he's going to go to jail, truthfully. You'd have to get him convicted in a Democrat in the district courts in Washington, D.C., where there's like 4% of the people voted for Trump. So it's very difficult to get a conviction here under any circumstance, but at the very least, what we should get some answers. We should be able to get to the bottom of this, and we should be able to prove exactly what happened. And that's my hope for the Durham investigation. And so pay attention to it. I know it's eyes glaze over stuff. Robert Romano with Americans for Limited Government will be writing on it, hopefully in tomorrow's Daily Torch. And so you'll get some perspective and a little more depth on it. But pay attention to what's going on, because in spite of all the promises and all the back and forth, and why isn't Comey in jail? Why isn't Clinton in jail? All of that, this investigation still goes forward, and it's important because it goes to the heart of the corruption of the Department of Justice, the same Department of Justice that just invoked the Patriot Act against law-abiding citizens around the country who are seeking to protect their children from critical race theory. So it all ties together, and so pay attention and don't shy away. Tell a friend. It's really, we have to win this. We have to return our justice system back to a blindfolded system without fear, that is absolutely straight and clean, without the political influence and political weaponization that's occurred. And the Durham investigation is part of that. And quite honestly, this fight against the imposition of Patriot Act on CRT is part of that, because Americans need to say enough is enough. Americans for Limited Government, we're calling for the Patriot Act to be repealed. It's everything that it was supposed to do has turned out really, basically, it's all the fears that people said about that could occur, that people like me said, no, that can't occur. This is America. All those fears have come to fruition. It's time to end the Patriot Act experiment and return back to a place where you're innocent until proven guilty, as opposed to what's occurred given that law and the breadth of power it gives our law enforcement officials.
Well, thank you so much, Rick. I just want to remind our viewers out there, if you like what we're doing, if you like what we're fighting for, which is limited government, maximum individual freedom and liberty, go to getliberty.org. That's our homepage. Sign up for our free daily newsletter. And every day you're going to get things from Rick, from Robert Romano, our policy analyst, and myself. We also have guest columnists and others who contribute. We're all fighting to make sure that big government is curb checked. We want people to have the ability to prosper and to use their talents and their abilities to their maximum. And we know that big government is a hindrance to individual freedoms and liberties. And we'd love to have you be on our team, a part of this fight with us. So go to getliberty.org, sign up for our free newsletter. And also, if you like what you're seeing now, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're growing. We know that more and more people out there are looking for voices like ours, people who are reliable sources of information about how to preserve our freedoms and liberties. And Rick, I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, as always, we bring you, some of the fights because that's what we're immersed in. But America is a great country. We are the greatest country on earth. Never forget that. Freedom is worth fighting for. And so don't despair. Just dig in. This is our time. This is our generation's time. This is the fight before us. It's not dying on the fields of Verdun. It's not being in the Battle of the Bulge or landing on the beaches of Normandy. This particular fight is about freedom, and it's about freedom here from an enemy from within, quite honestly. And that enemy from within, that doesn't make them evil. It makes them wrong. And we have to make certain that truth prevails, liberty prevails, and America prevails. That's our job. And I'm glad that they're joining with us. Please share it with a friend. Let's get America together, hand in hand, so we can restore America to the greatness that it has always been and to which it's always aspired to be.
All right. Thank you, Rick. And thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time on Americans for Limited Government live stream.